Okay, hi everyone. For those of you that haven't been along before, my name's James and I'm going to kind of get the wheel spinning and then pass it across to the people that actually know what they're talking about. Out of interest, who has not been to a meetup here before? Cool. Yep, WordPress meetup. That's good. Great to see some new faces along. Thanks for coming. And everyone else, thanks for coming back. That's the agenda for the evening. We've got 3 great talks lined up tonight, including a couple of people from Google in Sydney who have been nice enough to come down and do a presentation as well. So personally, I've been looking forward to all 3 of these. And hopefully you guys get a lot of useful information out of everything. So moving right along, welcome, as I said. First of all, I just wanted to take a second to thank our main sponsor, Envato. For those of you who haven't heard of Envato, they run ThemeForest and Code Canyon marketplaces where you can buy WordPress plugins and themes and a few other useful bits and pieces. They're a Melbourne-based company and they love WordPress and developers, so they're more than happy to provide the pizza each month. So I'd just like to thank them again for their support. And likewise, Inspire 9, the venue here, they're nice enough to give us this venue free of charge each month to use. And for those of you who haven't been to Inspire 9 before, it's a co-working space, and if you're looking for a spot to drop in and do some work, it's a great place to come. I've just started I'm a resident here now as well, and I was coming in occasionally, but it's a great place to come. So there's some other details there if you're interested in that. Okay, now onto the real stuff. Just a bit of WordPress news, some things that have happened in the last month or so in the WordPress arena. First one that I put at the top is WordPress 3.5.2, which was the latest version of WordPress was released a couple of weeks ago, and that's actually a security release. So if you're not running that 3.5.2, if you're running a version that's older than that, I would recommend updating as soon as possible. There's some pretty important security fixes in there, so make sure that you do that as soon as you can. Next thing, the annual WordPress survey. They've opened that up in the last 24 hours or so. Happen obviously annually, but the WordPress Foundation do a survey each year, and they try and get as many responses as possible each year, just so they can get a bit of an idea about how the world is using WordPress and whether they're using it to run their business, or basically how they use WordPress. So if you've got a second, you use WordPress or are thinking or wanting to use WordPress, I would recommend filling that in. I did it today, and it was sort of only 10 questions or so. It's pretty quick, and they use that, in theory, should help shape the future of WordPress a little bit. Next thing that I wanted to mention was ThemeForest. They've introduced in the last couple of weeks some new submission requirements. So as I mentioned before, ThemeForest is a marketplace where people can sell their WordPress themes. So in the past, some people have suggested that the quality in terms of code on ThemeForest was a little bit lacking. So ThemeForest have kind of come out and said that they've got these new requirements. So anyone wanting to sell a theme on there will have to start following those requirements. So overall, really, it's a benefit for everyone involved. It means the people purchasing themes should, in theory, be getting better written and more standardized kind of themes too. So that's definitely a good thing. The existing people selling themes on there's a bit of work in there involved for them, which is why there's I think it's up to about 72 pages. There's a thread on the ThemeForest forums where there's a bit of discussion back and forth about how everyone's going to deal with those new requirements, given especially the people that have got 20 or 30 themes already on there. But overall, it's definitely a step in the right direction, I think, so it was great to see them do that. And the other last thing I wanted to mention was an event coming up called Press Jam. And to tell us a little bit about that, I'm going to get Dee up here. Just give me 2 seconds.
While James is bringing up the webpage for Press Jam, Glenn, Todd and I are putting together... Glenn's here. You could talk about this instead of me. We're putting together a fun, slightly competitive event where we're going to basically jam some WordPress themes for not-for-profit organisations. So there's 2 ways you can get involved, or 3 in fact. If you are or know of a not-for-profit organisation who would like to have a small project put together in a very quick turnaround with a bunch of professional and not so professional WordPress developers, we would love to hear from you. We would love for you to submit your project, and we will be going through the projects. We've had 2 submissions so far, both of them that look really good. And what will happen was we will choose the projects that we think are achievable in the short turnaround that we have, and then we'll get our teams together and the teams will basically build your project. So if you're a not-for-profit, you send somebody along as your representative, you'll work with the team, and it will give you guys a chance to actually have a project built for no cost by a bunch of awesome people. If you are a WordPress developer, designer, WordPress blogger, somebody who's really interested in WordPress, doesn't really know a whole lot, but wants to know more, if you are a copywriter, if you are a project manager, if you are any of one of those kinds of people who would like to be involved in a team and actually come and actually jam for these guys, that would be really cool. And it will be a Friday night when we get together, socialise, put the teams together and meet the clients, and then on the Saturday we'll just spend all day putting together, designing, putting together this small campaign or website for them. The other way that you can get involved, if either of those parts look a bit daunting or you think it's a great idea and you'd like to throw some money at us, we're also looking for sponsorship as well. So the details are on wpaustralia.org/PressJam. You can find us also, we've got an event set up on the Meetup page, so if you can't remember that, you can find us via that. Sign up, get involved, we'd love to have you on board, and if you've got any questions, we'll then see me or Glenn after the proceedings tonight. Okay.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, is anyone else got any things that they would like to mention in the news section? Anthony?
They're expecting, I saw this happening, they're expecting 3.6 to go to the release candidate at the end of the week.
Yep.
It's currently still in beta 4 at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. So for those that aren't aware, the next version of WordPress 3.6 has been under development for sort of probably 6 months now. It's a little bit past its due date, but they're getting closer, and I believe they've pretty much informally said that it will be released before WordCamp San Fran. So when's that? A couple of weekends away. So in the next couple of weeks, we should see the next version of WordPress come out too. Anything else that anyone wants to mention? No? Cool. All right. Moving right along. Actually, just before we get onto the presentation, for those of you who haven't been here before, the toilets are around the back there to the right if anyone needs them. And God forbid the fire exits are over in that corner and that corner. So hopefully that was a waste of time mentioning that, but it's supposed to mention it anyway. Okay, so first up, we've got Amy and Stuart. As I said, they're from Google and they've come down from Sydney to do a presentation for us on using WordPress and Google App Engine. So just give us a second to set up, and in the meantime, let's make them feel welcome. Thanks, guys.
The phones are props for our talk, and the ringer is set very loud. You guys will find out why later, so hopefully they don't actually ring during our talk.
Cool.
All right, great.
Thanks.
Do you want to start? Or do you want me to start?
I'll start.
You start? All right.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Amy Unruh, and I work in developer relations at Google Sydney, which is sort of a public-facing engineer. Basically, I help people use our stuff.
You need to stand here.
And this is
Amy,
Sorry.
you need to stand here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that before.
Yes.
For the benefit of the people at home eventually that may hopefully get
Yes.
to see this.
Sorry, I was just trying to keep from being blinded by the
Project
slides.
your voice.
And this is Stuart, who's the technical lead for what we're about to talk about today, which is PHP on App Engine. So let's just tell you a little bit about why we're here to start with.
Yeah, perhaps just a quick
Yeah.
straw poll. Let's be optimistic. How many people have used App Engine with either Python, Java, or PHP? How many people have even heard of App Engine before they came tonight and have some semblance of what we're going to talk about?
Oh, excellent.
Cool. So there's probably half the people that have never heard of it, from what I can judge from that quick straw poll. So what we'll do, we're here to talk tonight about actually using WordPress and App Engine and using the features of App Engine to scale your WordPress apps or sites or whatever you want to call them. But looks like we need to do a bit of setup here, a bit of context to actually describe what App Engine is, how you might use it, and how it can be a benefit to WordPress developers, I guess.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
And feel free to interrupt with questions, especially if you just have no idea what we're talking about. Yeah.
I'm ready to go. All right, so cool. So App Engine is Google's platform as a service offering. It was launched in about 2008, started off with Python. Since then, they added Java. And this year, in May, we launched PHP support. So we haven't actually, it's not WordPress by Google or WordPress and App Engine, it's PHP on App Engine. It just so happens that when we were deciding what we were going to build out when we launched the platform, we needed sort of a target or a stake in the ground to get to. And of course, we picked probably what's the biggest PHP application around today, which is WordPress. So, as it turns out, when we launched App Engine, WordPress works really well. Some other things like Drupal and some other templating systems, stuff like that, are a bit behind the curve, but WordPress works really well, which is why we can come down here and talk to you guys about WordPress and App Engine and sort of have a coherent story as to something that actually works. So, App Engine's premise really is all about us managing the hosting stack for you and you worrying about developing applications. And probably its biggest, or one of its biggest draw cards is what the elastic scaling that it gives you. So essentially, because we're managing the hosting, we're managing the entire environment, the caching, task queues, which we're going to talk about, the front end, reverse proxy. So if you have a site that's doing one QPS or only getting one hit per day and all of a sudden you get slash dotted, in theory on App Engine, you don't have to care about it. You don't have to worry about what's going to happen. We scale up. We throw as much resources as you need to serve the traffic that your site has.
You don't have to do anything at all. It happens automatically.
And then when you disappear off the front page of Slashdot, we wind it back down. And basically you get charged for what's being used. So that's really, when you talk about the value of App Engine at a high level, that's where people see the greatest value. The next point is having a secure platform and having something where we maintain the infrastructure, so you're not worrying about kernel upgrades and have I set the right CH mod on this file system, have I got my web server set up correctly, blah, blah, blah. We do all that work for you as well. So essentially you just worry about writing apps or deploying...
Or just deploying WordPress.
Deploying WordPress
Yeah.
for your customers or for yourself, and pretty much it's fire and forget. You put it up there, we host it, we send you a bill every now and then. If you have enough traffic, you don't have any traffic, we don't send you any bill.
Yeah, we should say there's a free tier, so if you just want to play around, it's free to play around, and you only get charged if you start going above that free tier of use.
And the important thing for you guys tonight to remember is that we have launched it in experimental mode, which basically means we're still trying to iron out any little cracks in the system. But what that means is you need to get whitelisted to use the runtime. So if after tonight you think, yeah, I might want to give it a try, the theory is you go to the website you see on the front there and register an application. And when you register an app, put in, it's got like, what do you want to do? I think there's a box. Just put WordPress Melbourne. We'll go through there.
We'll look for them, yeah. We'll get you set up quickly.
I'm watching the action tonight. I'll whitelist people as fast as possible.
And by the way, there's going to be a bunch of links at the end of this talk too. You'll see that link again.
So I think we
pretty much covered that one.
There.
Yeah. Yeah.
So App Engine is probably now what we call the cornerstone of what Google is focused on, which is the cloud platform. So Google is probably a latecomer to cloud engineering, and you've already got Azure and AWS probably beat us out of the gate in a lot of these things. But we're catching up fast. So as a WordPress developer, or as a WordPress developer, the things that you need to get your WordPress site working on App Engine is MySQL database and somewhere to put your media files, like your pictures and JPEGs and whatever you upload to your site. And the solution that we have at Google, we have a service called Cloud SQL, and we have a service called Cloud SQL. Basically, Cloud SQL is MySQL in the cloud. We run it in the same data setup. We manage the authentication between your app and MySQL. You don't need to worry about firewalls and setting it up and replication and all sorts of stuff. We take care of all that. Cloud storage is, for want of a better term, a CDN network where you can put your stuff and we push it out and do all the caching on that for you. The bottom row that you see here are basically services that you get as part of App Engine on top of being able to run PHP apps. So you get a managed memcache service out of the box. So you don't need to configure memcache.
I have a question. Yes.
Can you please speak a little louder?
Speak, really? Speak louder. All right. Sorry, so the bottom line is the services that App Engine provides that you can use through APIs, or in the case of PHP, where it makes sense, we've actually matched it on top of the PHP API that exists today. So, for example, memcache, there's already 2 memcache APIs in PHP, memcache and memcached. We just mapped our memcache service on top of that, so it just works out of the box.
Yeah, so these are all managed services that you don't, when you're using App Engine, you don't have to do anything to set them up. They just sort of work for you. So there's no memcache setup, no email setup. And that's part of what you get with something like App Engine that's a platform as a service. It has lots of these managed APIs that you can just leverage without having to do any work.
The one that we left off the page here, which actually I think is really interesting for WordPress people, is page speed, which is our service for speeding up CSS and doing inline imaging and stuff like that to make your sites faster.
Yeah.
Basically, you get that with App Engine with the pickup line.
Yeah. Okay.
Go on to the next.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll come back to Task Queue, which is one of those managed services, and that's what the sort of the meat of our talk is actually going to revolve around tonight.
Once you all perfectly understand App Engine, then we'll get to these.
So we haven't really talked about what Task Queue is yet, but we're going to do that shortly. So just to set the context, it's one of these services that comes when you have an App Engine installed that you get out of the box.
WordPress and App Engine, cool. So the benefits of running WordPress and App Engine, obviously we'll probably demonstrate most of these, but it's really easy to deploy and manage your site, including versioning and doing traffic splitting and stuff between versions, so you can do testing and statistical analysis of does this site look better than this site by farming the traffic in between. As mentioned before, it scales automatically based on the load of your app. Security benefits, we could probably talk about this all day. So one of the big things about App Engine we haven't mentioned yet really is when you deploy your app, you can't write to the file system. Okay? You can't open the local disk and write to it. You can write to cloud storage, but you can't write to the local file system. And I mean, obviously the main reason we do that is it's easier to scale your app if you can't write to the file system. We can just move your app to different machines. You don't need to worry about transporting the files with them. But in terms of WordPress, in my limited research that I did, if you look at some of the biggest exploits of WordPress recently, it's been poorly authored plugins that let people get local file inclusions. I think TinFum or something like that is one of the biggest examples of that recently. So local file inclusions and RF5s are totally out of the window with App Engine. It can't happen. WordPress core has been
and we should add that if you need to write to if you need the analog of writing to a file system, you can use Google Cloud Storage. So essentially, what this is a feature rather than a restriction in our view, because it puts a security sandbox around.
We've actually offered a plugin that makes this all happen out of the box. So when you upload your media, it goes to cloud storage. It actually search from cloud storage as well, so you get the edge caching benefit from that. Background processing, we'll talk about task queues and doing things asynchronously shortly. Cloud SQL, cloud storage, obviously you need these two things to make WordPress sites hum, unless you have a static site, and then you don't need cloud storage. But most people don't seem to have static sites. And the managed services we already sort of talked about. Memcache, I guess, being the biggest one. Memcache plus backcache seems to be pretty popular in terms of caching. And so you get all this without having to worry about setting up your memcache service. How many memcache servers do you need? How are they going to scale? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, so you get a lot of nice things out of the box, and so some of the I think some of the neatest things that are maybe a little unusual are the automatic scaling and the background processing.
And hopefully we can give you a bit of this. So where are we up to? Oh, the plugin. All right.
Yeah.
So if you do happen to go home and think, yeah, I might want to give it a try. Pretty much the plugin is what glues together the App Engine APIs that don't map directly to PHP and WordPress. So the two at the moment, well, really the only two is writable file system, which is Google Cloud Storage, and sending email, which uses our own APIs that PHP mail API was particularly hard to deal with, so we didn't bother trying to make it work. But
Yet, but
well, yeah, forever.
yeah.
At that time, the guys at Sensor, probably some people know them, they actually helped us sort of write the plugin, essentially, which is how we got onto the Meetup, essentially.
Yeah, so we view this plugin is sort of going to be the interface eventually to more of the App Engine services. So for example, there's a user API which supports all of your, an App Engine user API which supports login and user authentication for you if you want to do that. So we have plans to add that to the plugin and basically integrate all of the set of what we think are going to be the useful services that WordPress users would want to use. And there's nothing preventing you from just using them right now directly. And we're in fact going to show you use of the task queue directly in just a bit. So in other words, hacking a theme to do that. But the plugin is eventually going to bundle things up more nicely so that you need to do very little configuration to use them. Okay, task queues. So, yes?
What the open source?
The plugin, sorry.
Yes.
No, the engine app.
In part, it's open. I mean, certainly the there's a SDK that's part of App Engine that lets you deploy your app and lets you run and test it locally, and that is open. The App Engine platform itself is, the infrastructure is not, but all of the APIs are openly specified, I guess is the right word.
To be fair, we have started doing a lot of work in that area. So there's an App Engine open source, I can't think of the name of the company. There's a version, not a PHP version, but there's a version for Python which is open source, and we're working with Red Hat.
AppScale and
AppScale.
Cape Dwarf. Yeah, those are both Python-centric, but yeah.
It's only a matter of PHP
Yeah.
has only been in App Engine too. It's only a matter of time till it's open
Yeah.
source.
And it's open in the sense of you can get your data in and out without restriction. And in fact, WordPress, because its data is in Cloud SQL is essentially MySQL under the hood, and you can always download your code and redeploy it elsewhere. So it makes it very easy to move your WordPress installs around. They're not locked in any sense. So it's open in that respect. You can always get your data out. You can always grab your code. Yeah, you can always grab any media files that you've uploaded. There's APIs to do all that.
The API only uses the Google Cloud storage, right?
So they're using basically the REST API, talking about storage, so all that stuff. You can take that.
Yeah.
We give you all the when you get the SDK has all the PHP files that we use to interact with the other services. And except for most things, you can change them however you want. Some things, when you get a bit closer to the middle, it's a bit harder to change. But generally speaking, you can hack on the APIs.
And Google Cloud Storage has a very easy to use and flexible API. And for example, you can just access via curl your files in Google Cloud Storage if you want to. So it's very, and it's not, Google Cloud Storage is its own service independent of App Engine. People often use it independent of App Engine. So there's no sense of once you have your files in there, you can get to them many other ways. You don't have to go through your WordPress install or App Engine to get to them, which is kind of nice. Okay, so task queues are actually one of my favorite App Engine features, I think, and so that's actually what we're going to demo tonight. So task queues lets you define tasks and then process them asynchronously in the background. So what that lets you do is it lets you do things in the background decoupled from, sort of the usual request response cycle of your app. So you get an incoming request, you do something, you send a response. And oftentimes there's things that you want to do that, that's a good figure to show there. There's often things that you want to do that you don't, that sort of aren't tied to the response that you want to return right away to the user. So if you could do them in the background, and if you could do them asynchronously, then it would make your app seem more responsive. So this is an example of that, where, say, there's something you want to do when you publish a blog post. And in fact, we're actually going to have a demo that does that in a little bit. Does it very obnoxiously. So what you might do is you might call a third-party API. Send some email or maybe post to Twitter, or as you'll see, maybe send an SMS to someone. And so that can take a while, right? You block while that's going on, and then you finally return a response once you finish that processing. So that would be the way things would work if you couldn't do asynchronous background processing, and that's sort of the norm. So with task queues, it makes it really easy to factor out that background work. So what happens is we publish the blog post, and what we do is, so on App Engine, we create a task to say, okay, do this third-party notification that I want to do, and we put that task on the App Engine's task queue. And it gets scheduled and it runs in the background, and while it's being scheduled and while it's running, you can go ahead and return your response to the user. And if what you're doing is sort of complex, it might be a while before your task queue task finishes doing its background work, but you've sent your response back to the user, and so your app is a lot snappier because you managed to decouple that.
One of the other things about task queues, which is reasonably cool, is that they have auto retry built in. So in this example here, if you are calling Twitter and for some reason you get a 404 back from Twitter, the task will automatically retry up to a predefined amount of time.
You can set how many retries you want it to do.
And it backs off as well, so it doesn't just hammer away at something until it gives up. It backs off. So not only does it let you do stuff asynchronously, but it lets you take what is potentially unreliable work and farm it off and have it automatically retry until it actually works.
And another neat thing about the task queue is that App Engine, so we talked a little bit ago about how it automatically scales. So that applies to task queue tasks as well. So it's going to automatically, if you have a lot of background work to do, and you start dumping many tasks into the task queue, App Engine is going to scale to handle that. It's going to automatically increase capacity. It won't, your front end responsiveness won't suffer because of it. It'll essentially spin up more resources to handle the busy task queue while the task queue is busy, and then when it finishes all its jobs, it'll spin down the resources again. So it's just as responsive with the back-end processing as it is with the front-end processing in terms of scaling. It's really quite nice. I love task queues because they're so flexible, and they make it so easy to do all sorts of things decoupled from each other really nicely. Okay. So we're going to look at a little more code in a bit, but here's basically the gist of what you do to on App Engine to create a task and add it to the task queue. You need to do a require. It's shown up there, and then use Google App Engine API task queue push task. And so once you've done that, you can just define a new push task. And so what this line of code is doing is that the SMS notify.php basically holds the code that you want to run when the task runs. And we'll show you a little bit more about how that works in a second. But that basically has the code that you want to run. And then you're passing here, you're passing some parameters to that code. And they're essentially going to be treated as post parameters. And in this case. And then we're just adding, so we created a task, we're just adding it to the task queue, and that is it. That's all you have to do. And it runs automatically, it scales automatically.
It's essentially it's going to do once the queue manager is going to post to the URL at the front there with the content of the post.
Yeah.
So you can define as many different handles as you want. You can also define as many queues as you want. You can put different properties on the queues, and you can obviously put different data in based on what you want to send to the other side. So you write a post handler to accept the task, and that's how you get the call.
Yeah. So, and I should have been more clear. That Stuart said that's essentially a handler. So one of the little things you have to do is tell your app engine configuration that it is a handler essentially, and how to map to it, which we'll see shortly. So it's essentially a URL that you're passing in. So really, task queues and WordPress hooks used together make for a lot of fun messing around, and that is actually what our demos are going to be tonight. So if you've ever looked at defining actions on hooks, and here's a couple of examples. You can imagine all sorts of fun things to do. So you could do something when a post is published. You could do something when a post is saved. And instead of doing those things like in the context of the request, so doing some complicated thing when a post is published and then returning to the user, yeah, we published this. You can punt it off to a task queue and say, whatever this complicated thing is I'm going to do once my post is published, I'm going to do it in the background, and I'm just going to go ahead and return. And so we'll see how that works. It works really well. So hooks and task queues are great.
Demo time?
Okay, demo time.
I can't type and stand, so Amy will have to project. So hopefully everybody can see that. We got which one?
We might want to make it a little bit bigger if we can.
So I guess most people are probably familiar with PHP Storm, which hopefully you can see this is PHP Storm. So fortunately for us at Google, we have a nice relationship with JetBrains, and they released a plugin for App Engine the day we actually announced PHP support in App Engine.
Can everyone see the font size okay? A little bigger? Yeah, okay. How's that? Okay.
Do I need to be at the top or in the middle or the bottom? Anyway.
Uh,
So anyway, the moral story is that in PHP Storm, you can actually run and debug your apps locally without having to push them up. So as part of the SDK, we have a complete development environment that includes Memcache, includes task queues, includes the administration console. Basically mocks of all of the services that you get in production so that you can write your app and run it and test it locally without ever having to touch production, and then when you're happy you can push it up to production. So we'll sort of demo that here now. Do you want to, is there any code you want to talk to?
Yeah, so scroll down to the bottom and then, yeah. So we're going to show two uses of task queues. So this is the first one, scheduling a publish task. So normally this would be done with the cron job. And one thing we didn't really dwell on is App Engine actually does support crons, and you can schedule crons to run, and so that works very well as just sort of the typical WordPress install. But say you scheduled your cron to run every 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever, and maybe you want to sort of handle the case where you create a post and you want to schedule it, like say in the next 5 minutes, and you don't want to have to wait till your cron to run to do that. So this is just a fun demo of how you could use tasks and task queues to do that. And so I won't go through this code in gory detail, but essentially what it's doing is so sorry, just a little context here. This is in the functions.php file of the theme that our installation is using, and there may have been like a cleaner place to put this, and if there is, definitely let us know. But this is adding some code to the functions.php file for our theme. So first we're defining this function, schedule publish task, and the gist of it is basically we're just finding when is the task, or sorry, the post, when is the post due to be published, and we're using that information to schedule a task on App Engine's task queue. And so all of this stuff is basically code figuring out when we want to schedule it. And then we're creating a new push task, and it's calling the publish task URL. So we'll look at what that code does in a minute. That's basically the code that's actually going to publish the task. And we're saying, let's schedule this out into the future, the number of seconds away from now that we want our post to be published. So that's what this does right here. And then we're passing as a parameter to this task the post ID, which is really all the information we're going to need. So we're saying parameter is the post ID, and we're scheduling this task to run X seconds into the future, however many that is, which could be many hours away. And then we add it to the task queue. Okay, so now let's look at publish tasks. So this is the code that runs when the task runs, and so it grabs its task parameters. So this is essentially just a task handler. It's a URL that we specified, and it's getting its parameters from the post parameters. So if those of you who have done a little hacking around yourself, that's the post array that has the set of request parameters for this request. If that doesn't make sense, just in a nutshell, that's the way that these tasks get their parameters passed into them. So we have our post ID from the post array, and then we're just going to publish the task. Really, this just for simplicity, we're sort of hackily not like checking the publish date again, and really we should do that. But essentially, we're just getting the post from the post ID, and we're publishing the task, and that's all that this does.
Should we go?
Yeah. So then.
All right. So what we can do in PHP Storm is actually run WordPress locally on our machine and use task queues and memcache on localhost. So here I am on localhost. Hopefully, if I hit this will refresh, which it does. So we'll go in and schedule a post. Go as fast as possible. I'm sure everybody knows.
Make it like 1 minute away.
Oh, we didn't. We made a bit of a. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
it's going to go crazy here. So we'll publish it 1 minute in the future. And it's now scheduled. So what we can do is actually go and look at the administration console. So this is basically the version of the administration console that you get in production, but in development environment. And if we go into task queues here, we can see that we have a queue named default, which every app gets a default queue. There's one task waiting to go, and it looks like it's going to execute 29 seconds from now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can.
And that might be too small for some of you to see, but basically it's just a few seconds out. and so that's the task that we put in this task queue to.
So these queues, you can pause them, you can purge tasks from them. In production, you can actually go in and look at the individual tasks and look at the contents of what's in there. But hopefully, it's just publish our post. So there's no more tasks in the queue, which means the task has fired. So if we go to the front page here of our site, and there's the post that we just made. So basically we use task queues to do the delayed post.
And just sort of more generally, anything that you sort of want to, schedule and do at a specific time and not have to wait for your crons to run. It's really easy to do that, but once you sort of get the hang of it.
All right, part 2. Go, Amy.
All right. So the next demo is a little more dramatic and or annoying. Hopefully it'll work. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to send some notifications once a post is published. And we're going to use the task queue to do that. And so, actually, let's switch back to the slides for just a second, and I'll show that picture. Yeah. So we're going to do something that's sometimes called task fan out. Is when we're actually going to have one task trigger some other child tasks. So when the post is actually published, we're going to put one task on the task queue that says, okay, deal with all the notifications that we want to send for this post. And then it's going to go through its address book or its list of people to pester or, whatever it does. In this case, we have a list of just Stuart's and my mobile phones. and so it's going to go through that list, and it's going to say, all right, I'm going to launch a new task for each person that I want to notify. And then what we're going to do, just for some drama and because it's fun, we're going to use Twilio, which is a service that lets you send SMSs. So for each person in our list of people to notify, these people here, we're going to send a text message. And so by doing this fan out, we're making things happen. We're decomposing them even further and letting our tasks be even more decoupled, if that makes sense. So we're just doing like little bitty chunks of work. We're putting them on the task queue basically all at once, and we're just letting them run. And so we should say that Twilio itself doesn't sort of throttles us. So this is not going to be quite as dramatic as it could be. But essentially, we're going to be putting a whole bunch of notification tasks on the queue. We're going to be pinging our mobile phones multiple times. And so let's look at the code to do that. So it's really pretty simple. The code that triggers it is we're defining a function to create a task. It uses this Twilio SMS URL, which we'll look at in a second. And we're just passing the message and a list of people that we want to send it to. Okay. And then let's look at Twilio. So here's the meat of it, and I won't go through this code in too much detail. By the way, we'll post this afterwards and give James a link if you're interested in looking through it more closely. But essentially, the parent task, if you want to call it that, that's in charge of sending all the notifications, is basically going to loop through its list. That's what's going on right here, and setting up a notification task for each person in this list, which is what's going on right here. So it's very straightforward, and that's essentially all of this code is doing. And again, this task, the parent task, the one that sort of launches all the notifications, is put on the task queue when a post is published. Okay.
Okay, cool. So just to confuse you even more. So because Twilio actually throttles us, we're going to use a different queue to send SMS messages. And we're going to actually put a rate on that queue which says don't execute tasks any faster than 2 per second.
So App Engine can have multiple task queues, which we didn't really go into before, and you can name them different things. We were just using the default queue before. This is a new queue that's named send SMS. Yeah.
And because we're running a little bit out of time, what we'll actually do is we'll push this app up to production and launch it for production. So you could run this the same in the development console that I showed you before, and it would talk off the Twilio because it's using credentials that are stored on the machine here, and it would all work. But in the interest of time, we'll just push this up to production and run it. So how we push to production, and just ignore the warnings, this is actually my fault. But so how we push this to production, when you get the SDK, you get a tool called app CFG. and it's responsible for taking the bits off your machine and pushing them up to the cloud, so to speak. And how it does that is it looks at a file called app.yaml, which once again we haven't really gone into because it'll just confuse you. But app.yaml you can sort of think of as the Google equivalent of htaccess, I guess. Give or
Yeah,
take.
it has a lot of routing information.
It defines routing
Yeah.
from addresses to scripts to handle it, and it uses regular expressions, and you can do interesting stuff like enable HTTPS for certain paths, or you can only let administrators log in. For example, on line 15 it says login admin, only administrators of the apps can access that URL, which the other common WordPress problem at the moment is people trying to brute force passwords. So if you have an app and the only people that ever log into the app is the administrators, so if you have a WordPress site and you're the only person that manages it, you can actually lock down all of the administration functions to the administrator of the app, and Google Authentication takes care of that for you. It won't let anybody else get through to the application.
And just as a side comment, this looks like it has a lot of stuff in it, but it's actually all boilerplate, and it's in our documentation for a WordPress install, except for two little definitions here, which define the two new task handlers that we added, which are this one and this one. And again, we'll post this code if you're interested, but the rest of it is all completely boilerplate. You don't have to figure it out. You can just cut and paste it in. So.
App Engine users or WordPress users, like admin, the login?
Yeah.
Sorry, so that's
yeah,
the
that's a good
administrators
question,
of the
yeah.
App Engine application in this case, right?
But it's a particularly good question because something we didn't go into is that queue tasks run as admin, and that's App Engine admin. So what that means is that no one, unless they're an App Engine admin of your app, can go and just run that URL. So that's protecting it. It's buttoning it down. It's saying, just the ordinary user. And of course, the App Engine admin, the App Engine app admin can be distinct from the WordPress install admins. Yeah. So it can be, very buttoned down.
Yeah, but each thing, if
Yeah.
you change this line to login admin here, basically would lock down the login screen in WordPress, so
Yeah.
people that aren't admins of the application can't get through to your site. So obviously if you have a lot of users and you're using all the features of WordPress with editors and publishers and whatever, this solution is not that great for that. And in the plugin, we're going to look at using Google Auth more for securing your site rather than the Auth in the database. But if it's just your site or just one or two people, this is a great way just to lock it down. But anyway, so the tool AppCG is going to look at that file and push stuff up to the cloud. So I've run it before, obviously, as you can see. We'll do it again. What's also cool about this tool is it understands what's changed between the last time you pushed and this time. It only pushes the deltas, basically. So in a thing like WordPress, where there's a couple of thousand files and which have a few themes and a lot of content, the first time you push it might take a couple of minutes, but after that it's very snappy. Unfortunately, the warnings are because I'm using an unreleased version, but ignore them. So,
And also, we should say that for those who kind of prefer not to work from the command line, there's an App Engine launcher app. It's not quite hooked in for PHP yet, but it will be. So,
PHP Storm
yeah.
will push for you as well.
Yeah.
You can just
Okay,
push it
okay.
from PHP Storm.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so this is the admin console of our app in the cloud. What we'll do, I should just go to the app and start it up because it takes a few minutes, obviously, to do the post. So what's going to happen now, once again, we'll do a post with a delayed publish, but after that's happened, it's going to then send a couple hundred SMSs to me and Amy and annoy us.
Using Twilio, a great service.
So we'll just go really quick, there's nothing new here.
Yeah, so again, just to recap, what's going to happen, once the post actually gets published, a task is going to go on the task queue that says notify all my bazillion users, which is really many instances of Stuart and me. And then it's going to launch a new task for each of those notifications, and those are all going to shuffle through the task queue really quickly.
So now if I go into the admin console, before you saw that we defined a new queue called send SMS, and we have the default queue which every app gets. So like we had before, there's a task waiting in the queue that's going to fire in 55 seconds from now. So we'll just wait patiently. So you can imagine patterns here where you define a whole bunch of different queues and they all have different rates depending on the service that you're talking to and how you want to throttle them individually. We've only really touched on push tasks today, but there's another feature called pull tasks where you actually pull them yourself with a background job, so you can do it on a schedule. Like if you want to do processing at midnight, you put everything in the queue, wake up at midnight, suck it all off, process it, away you go. The other thing about tasks you haven't mentioned is you get 10 minutes to execute the request, right? So if you want to do something that's going to take a long time, you have up to 10 minutes with a task queue post, whereas with a post from a user you get 60 seconds basically before we'll time you out. So
You might show, while we're waiting, you might show essentially the dashboard. And,
we're in business. So
all right,
anyway,
okay.
so it's done our post. If we go back, you can hear the phone start going crazy. So we've actually now got 140 tasks in this second queue, which are now just sending SMSs to us constantly at the rate of 2 per second. It's shame if I can scale back the font a bit and people can still see. You can see us telling you how many has been processed in the last minute, how many are currently being processed. I can jump into this task queue and see what tasks are there and what the ETA is and when you want to schedule them. So if you're scheduling stuff in the future, you can see what's due to fire. Or you can just say fire now and it will fire whenever it can. I can pause my queue.
I accidentally had my phone in silent mode. Now it's going to start making noise too.
I can pause my queue, so if it's gone crazy, which in this case it has because it's sent SMSs to the same people, I can pause it and purge it out. Hopefully if I refresh this, I can go in and actually look at a task and look at the payload of the task. So you can see the headers there and where it's going to call and what the content length is. If I go into the payload, you can see it's doing a post and there's the phone number and who it's going to call and whatever else. So the admin console actually gives you a really good view into what your task queue is doing and what's processing and how many have failed. If these were failing, it would tell you how many have failed.
And
also,
just sort of to beat one of the main points into the ground, this is all happening asynchronously from your client request response, right?
yeah,
That's
so we
not
could
taking
obviously
any
go
time.
back here and visit the site. It's just a different request and the task queues are still running in the background. If I jump in and look at my dashboard for my app, this is basically the hub that shows you how many requests you're getting per second, sort of how many instances you're using. So instances to us is basically a server that's running. It's processing requests. So if we were to put 10,000 tasks in that queue with no rate limit on it, it would just spin up as many instances as it need to process 10,000 as fast as possible. But in this case, it's just spun up 3.
So it's
to
not
process
working very hard, but
No, and it will spin them up and then sort of leave them in reserve, and then if it needs to load, it'll pull them in so you don't get charged for them. And it's funky stuff. You can read all about it. And the last thing I guess we'll just dive into really quickly is that the logging. So because your instances are running on different machines,
turn
same
this one
machine, you
down.
don't really know. Yeah, we need to kill it. All the logging still happens centrally back in the console here. And the way that we've done that through PHP is through syslog. So if you looked at the code before, there was codes like syslog, log debug, and then some string which you can go in. And so you see it coming out here all in one central place. And actually the cool thing about this is then you can now start filtering on different types of errors. So before we put the wrong phone number in and it was complaining, and it's captured that. So do we have? So I think that's.
yeah. And I'll show the resource slide.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. So
Whoops.
one more. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So if you can write down or grab that first link up at the top, that'll give you all these other links if you're interested. There's a ton of documentation and sort of tutorials and getting started articles. We didn't talk very much about some of the details of the setup necessary, just in interest of time. But it's really all spelled out. It's really quite straightforward, and it's free to get started. So we'd love you to start just messing around with this and give us feedback. And remember that you do need to register. So that second link. So just put that you are at the Melbourne Meetup, and we'll try to expedite it. And if you want to email me directly with feedback or questions or whatever, you're welcome to. I'm amyU@google.com. But that's going to all be in the slides. So
Let's work our way back.
Yeah, a couple of minutes.
And yeah, we're going to hang around, so
yeah.
you want to come talk to us?
Yeah, quick question. So with Scalable, you've obviously gone to the effort of making the file system not writable so you can scale up different instances in the background. Do you have any for memory management? Do you have any for sessions and stuff like that?
So for sessions, right now we write them in Memcache.
Okay. So you route that automatically?
So we wrote a session
Yeah.
handler that we set up automatically that if you just go session start, it automatically is going up to Memcache. Obviously Memcache.
And it works out of the box.
It works out
Yeah.
of the box. The caveat with Memcache is that your data can be zoomed. Right? That's the principle of Memcache. It's not reliable.
Yep.
If you had an app where you absolutely had to have the session, we would say put it in SQL. Or ultimately put it in the data store. So what we didn't talk about today is we have a NoSQL data store with App Engine. But because nobody's got any NoSQL PHP apps, relatively speaking, we haven't actually lit up that pitch yet.
But we will
We'll
soon,
We'll
yeah.
do that, and instead of Memcache, then we'll default to data store, and then it will be durable and reliable.
Okay. Just another quick question about upgrade path. So you've got WordPress that's running on App Engine. You've obviously your deployment you were deploying from your local environment.
That's,
Does that
yeah.
mean you can't upgrade it once it's up there?
No, not at all. So people have asked us about this and whether we can somehow shimmy our virtual file system on Google Cloud Storage and stuff like that. But the plan at the moment is so being a developer, I'm not quite sure why you would not test something on your machine and stage it out and push it. So in that pattern, the guys that we talked to in WordPress shops, and that's how they work anyway. So it hasn't been a big sticky point. It's probably a sticky point for users that just want to go click and magic happens. But this is devs, so I can talk already dev here, right? So from a point of view of staging, testing, pushing, and if you go to our blog post, we did a post maybe 2 weeks ago about versioning, actually, where you can run different versions simultaneously, and you can roll back versions in between and stuff like that. So that story works really well with deploying on your machine and pushing up, as opposed to click a button and you get started and it's broken where you go. So, you know what I mean? So, but we understand that the other end of the spectrum, just that I want to run WordPress, I don't care how it works, is not going to be so happy with that story, but we'll see what happens. See how it pans out.
Regarding the task queue, what happens in the case of REST page that you do tasks which say pause?
So the theory is that your tasks should be idempotent in some way. So they should be recovered. They should be able to execute multiple times, and the logic of your code should be able to deal with that scenario.
Yeah.
So perhaps we should take it offline if we're going to talk about it. So with task queues, it's at least once. It's not only once or maybe once, it's at least once. So in theory, the task can file more than once for the same task.
And
So-
I think he was also asking about two
Rest
tasks running
conditions.
concurrently, so, yeah.
So if you only put one task in the queue, it's only going to ever run once concurrently, right? So
Yeah,
it's not
what
gonna
happens in
execute.
case, let's say there's a pause, I edit the pause and run some kind of task in the queue. On the other side, there's another person who's trying also to do the same pause, that runs different tasks.
Yeah, essentially, they may run concurrently, and you need to design them so that that's not an issue, which is the short
There's
answer.
other ways around.
right?
I mean, you
Yeah.
can set a queue up to only execute one task at a time.
Yeah, well, yeah, but,
If you can set it up on. But ultimately, it comes down to the
Yeah.
logic of your app, and you're dealing with that.
yeah.
If you set up your app that can do that, then you need to have logic that can deal with it.
Yeah, I should say, if you can ensure that they run one at a time, but assuming you don't want to do that because you want to allow them to scale up, then the idea is that you design them so that they do the bookkeeping necessary so they don't step on each other's toes. Yeah.
Bookkeeping for the tasks running so the task will be developed, like the task.
But we should probably take it offline because it's actually it's a
I
very
totally get
broad
your point, but we can
broad
probably-
and interesting question. Yeah, there's lots of levels of answers to that. It's a good question. Yeah.
But we'll hang around, so
Yeah.
if you want to talk to us, please do.
All right, can everyone help me thank Amy and Stuart for coming down Pacific? Okay, we'll just get set up for the next speaker, and we should be up and running in a minute or so, hopefully. less or more public.
It might be a little bit less. It might end up being less, but yeah.
Play this now.
Yeah. Good catch. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we've got Peter Wilson talking about CSS and specificity, maybe.
Specificity.
How many times have you been practicing that word in the last week? Okay, so if everyone can make Peter feel welcome, we'll pass it over to Peter. Thank you.
G'day. Thank you. As James just said, I was about to call him Aaron. Yeah, I'm talking about CSS. I'm mainly a front-end developer, so it's when I get into the CSS that I find things really interesting. So it's the bit I enjoy, but I'm sort of a generalist web developer. And specificity, when it's used properly, it's really powerful and really friendly thing. It lets you target basically anything you want very precisely. You can use it to override styles depending on the context that your page is in and that an element is in. And you can use it to set rules that aren't going to be overridden and are basically the sort of all-powerful rules. It can also be a bastard. So it's when you get stuck in specificity wars, I call them, which is when you're not really sure what's going on in the CSS and you don't really know what a style is coming from or where a particular colour is being applied from. That's when it becomes problematic, and knowledge of specificity and how it's calculated becomes very convenient. And you can also, if you target something too widely, you'll end up targeting everything on your page or entire blocks of your page when you only want something specific. So it all comes down to the selector types, and I'm sure everyone here writes CSS every day. I'm getting some vague nods, so I'm just going to go through really quickly just the type of selectors that you've got. We've got the ID selectors, one ID per element, and an ID can only appear once on a page. Then we've got classes. Any element can have multiple classes, and single class or the same class can appear multiple times on a page. The div, or the element selector, which is just the elements the W3C defines, and as long as it's semantic, you can put it anywhere, and browsers are fairly forgiving, so usually, even if it's not semantic, you can put it anywhere on the page. There's attribute selectors, so in this case I'm using title equals site to select a link, but often this is just used for input selectors, so someone will specify that it's a text input rather than, say, a radio input. But you can use any attribute you want, and there's some tricks that I've seen that people use with attribute selectors to manipulate specificity. Then there's pseudo classes, which is hover, focus, a lot of the sort of behaviour stuff, or what the user's doing to the web page produces a pseudo class. So if they've checked or unchecked a box, that triggers a pseudo class. If they're focusing and they're writing in an input, that triggers a pseudo class. But there's also a position within the DOM that have pseudo classes, so first child and last child and all the other nth child sort of commands. And then there's pseudo elements, which are just outside the, just sort of a shadow DOM, and you can use them and put styles on your page for elements that don't actually exist. And finally, and this isn't a selector, but it's important when you're talking about specificity, is the important tag or the important property. And that's important is basically the granddaddy of specificity. So having gone through a very quick rush through of what I consider the nice ones, then there's the negative one, which is inline CSS. And I was building websites some time ago, so this reminds me of the bad old days when I was using table-based layouts and font tags and, you know, some of the code soup that I produced back when web developers everywhere were calling themselves designers too. So I tend to ignore it. It's not always easy because JavaScript loves, especially some of the bigger libraries, love putting inline styles into your CSS, into your HTML if you're using JavaScript animations. There are workarounds possible, but that's a subject for another talk. But yeah, I basically ignore them and sort of treat it as a rule that it makes babies cry. So having gone through that big run through, specificity is calculated based on the types of selectors you use. So there's four groupings that they use. So there's elements and pseudo elements. So say div and that before, they're the lowest ranked selectors for specificity. Then there's classes, which is the next highest ranked, and that also covers pseudo classes, and attribute selectors also fall in there. And then there's IDs, and it's exclusively IDs, it doesn't have anything else. And then at the granddaddy end, there's the important tag. So when you're using the important tag, that will just trump everything. So each of these is infinitely more powerful than the previous one. So you know, you can have 20 element selectors and a single class selector, and the single class selector will win over something with 20 element selectors in there. So, and then, you know, an ID will win over that and an important will win over that. So to give you an example, I found this in a fairly popular plugin. It's a fairly long selector, which in the code that it's in, the idea is that it turns the warning message for if someone mucks up their credit card number, it turns it red. So it's got what they're aiming to be a fairly high specificity with 4 classes and 2 elements. But it also means that you can easily override it with a little bit of ignorance and just a single ID and by targeting a div, which is what the final one is in that first one. So it becomes problematic if you start off with the code that's in there that you've got in your plugin just to turn produce a white warning on red. If you then just add the second selector into the theme, you can just basically clear that and end up with white text on white. So that's an example of one of the specificity battles that you can get into. And this is where you kind of must know that inline CSS comes up between IDs and the important tag, because it places it very high up in the scale of specificity. So if you have got JavaScript adding some inline styles into your CSS, it's very easy for you to get lost in sort of specificity wars that you're trying, that you'd like to try and avoid. So I'm sort of moving on. Having covered how it's calculated, are there any questions, by the way, before I move on from specificity? I'll take the silence as either confusion or a no. So I'm sort of moving on to what has become fairly widely known as SMACSS, which is a method that Jonathan Snook, an American CSS guy or web developer, wrote about for scalable modular CSS. And it's an idea that's been around for a while under the name object-oriented CSS, which a lady called Nicole Sullivan has been talking about for a few years. And what it is it treats everything on the page as a block, and it rather than targeting things according to the content, it might target them according to a pattern or something that's in that in the design. So it's mainly used on very large sites, but it does have some use for small sites. And my reaction when I first heard it was that it was basically stupid. And you know, I heard 2 or 3 different interviews with different people talking about these techniques, saying, you know, oh, they're, and you know, listening to them thinking they were silly ideas to be focusing on design and layout rather than on content. But I then, you know, decided to sort of listen to it and actually hear what they were saying and give it a go. And it's basically, the idea is that almost all websites use the same patterns. So you start off with a few little cheats to get you going in and just using these patterns and recognising the patterns. So a simple example is, you know, if you've got this from the Apple website, and we've also got the header from the Samsung and Microsoft websites. If you look at them, they're all fairly standard menus, and as you can see, the same pattern, just in these 3 headers, is appearing 5 times of a horizontal menu. And then we can go on to other sites. So this is Thesis and WordPress. Again, they've got this same sort of navigational pattern in there, and also they have the image to the left, text to the right pattern, both used on their sites as well. So it's those patterns that you take advantage of, and rather than focusing on the styles, you focus on the pattern. So it's looking at this and saying that it's a list. It may or may not have links in there, but you know, it usually does. It doesn't have any bullet points, and it's laid out horizontally across the screen. So it's fairly simple to apply that in CSS and just use this code here to put your list into horizontal mode. Get rid of the bullet points, and you just use that on all your sites, and then from there you'll apply your styles. So in the context of WordPress, when I'm doing a menu at work, more often than not I'll just put nav in there, and then a second class in there which I'll hang all the styles off. So main nav, and then I might have footer nav or a side nav, it depends on the site. And the same goes with the other pattern that we saw of the image on the left, text on the right. The text can be any size. In this block here, it all happens to be the same layout, but the image can be any size, the text can be any length, so the idea is that it's flexible. And recognising that as a pattern saved Facebook hundreds and hundreds of lines of code when they took on object-oriented CSS in their CSS library. So again, that's just done with 7 lines of code. So you basically, put in a clear fix at the top, and then just float your image to the left. And don't worry about anything else. Don't worry about sizes, margins. If you want to use anything else style-wise, you just add those using a second class. And when I actually listened to what they said, I realised that I've been using part of these ideas for years. Every time I used a grid, a clear fix, and even WordPress widgets, to a large extent, use object-oriented methodologies. So, just sort of as a final thing, I'm going to just look to give a simple demonstration of adding SMACSS to an existing theme that's about to go into the repository. I won't be mean and name names, so we'll use a code name, MMXIII. But yes, so this is code that I noticed fairly early on looking in this particular theme's CSS. And I don't want to say that they've maybe got too many selectors here, but I can demonstrate it because there's 19 selectors here, and in the context of the code, all it's doing is it's adding an icon before each of these items. And elsewhere in the CSS, they define what that icon is. So, it's, a little tag icon for the tag links and so forth. And the problem is there's no consistent specificity. It varies quite a bit in there and goes from a fairly low one at the top to quite high with the ID and elements at the bottom. So changing it to just use a class and recognise that this is a pattern that's going to be used again and again is nice and simple, it's quick, and it removes the problem of not knowing what the specificity is, because you always can look at that and just say, this is, one class, one pseudo element, so the specificity is 1,1, which means that it's nice, stronger, faster. That simple change has reduced the CSS by 0.5K. So that was the first thing I found. So if I went through and looked at patterns in this mystery theme a few more times, I might be able to lower the CSS and reduce the CSS even more. And because the specificity is all lower than it, it actually means that the browser operates faster as well. It's not much faster at all. There's so many other things that you can do to speed it up. But it is worth noting that, if you're smart and keep specificity low, it will operate often to use SMACSS or with WordPress, you do need to manipulate it a bit. One thing that I noticed was a pattern was there's captions which have their own shortcode, and there's also the gallery shortcode. And I've bolded the items that are in common using the default shortcodes, and it's basically the link and the single class caption text. So what I tend to do is add a whole lot of filters to it so that I can actually redo it and make it uniform. And so in this example here, you'll see that instead of bolding what was in common, I'm now bolding what's not in common. And I've got a note here that this is a caption filter and it's an inline caption, and I've just, in the gallery, I'm using exactly the same code, wrapping it as a gallery item and noting that my caption is now on a gallery item. So I'll publish those as gists and put up notes on Speaker Deck when I upload my slides. And that's just a sort of simple example, but where you can add filters to it. And get yourself a few things just to sort of bring SMACSS into WordPress. So anyway, that's it. It's been a bit of a whirlwind, I know, but hopefully I've helped some of you. If anyone's got any questions.
If someone's looking for a good example of a site out there that's using this kind of idea, where are some good examples? You mentioned that Facebook are using it, but
Sorry? Yahoo used it, which is what Jonathan Snook basically wrote his book about using it on there. I know that one of the B Sky B sites in the UK is using it. I think it's the Sky Betting site, which was designed by Harry Roberts, who's better known as CSS Wizardry. So there's a few sites out there, but yeah, it's generally the larger sites. If you dig into their code, you'll recognise that they're probably using more classes in their HTML to get away with less code in their CSS.
Can I just say, for those who are using Genesis, the new Genesis 2.0, they're made a lot more class-orientated CSS for more specificity, heading down this kind of path.
I've been meaning...
Have you been having a look at it? You talked about downloading it, but you've looked at it yet.
So Dave was just saying that Genesis 2 is sort of heading down this path. I downloaded it and I've been intending to have a look at it, but you know, it's one of those things that is on my many weekend tasks. But yes, no doubt I need to take a look at it.
You said that having a higher specificity increases the browser load. Do you mean if you have like a whole chain of different
yeah.
not just like one important tag, which is a higher priority?
Yeah, it's it's having the entire chain of things that theoretically slows down browsers, but it's such a small amount that you're, unless you're really keen and G-zipping everything and sending it down and minimising all your CSS, your time's best spent doing that than worrying about selectors. But having a smaller chain just makes it easier to keep track of where you are in your in your CSS when you're writing things. Sorry, in your code when you're coding it up.
Maybe 2 more questions? No more questions? All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Peter. Okay, now, I know it's been a kind of a long night with 2 presentations. There is one more. For those of you that are thinking about heading off because it's getting late, I would recommend hanging around for this last one. Troy, the next speaker, Troy, tends to have a pretty good knack of keeping the audience awake, so hopefully he's on the ball tonight. We'll just get him set up and get going in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to hand it over to Troy Dean, who's talking about 101 ways to elevate yourself and demand higher fees. So everyone make Troy feel welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm going to disclaim this by saying I could fall asleep at any minute. I'm not kidding you. I could actually drop. I've been on a long-haul flight yesterday from the Philippines. I think that's where I was. I haven't slept much in the last 48 hours, so this could go either way. If I nod off, just kick me and I'll wake up again. This is...
throw something at you.
Yes, please. Just throw stuff at me. This is where I was in the Philippines. Anyone been here before? Yeah, you have? No? This is a little place called Boracay Island. Not Boracay Island, Boracay Island. There is a difference. It's consistently voted the best beach in the world, and I've been on a hunt over the last few years to find the best beach in the world. I've been all through Thailand and through Bali, and I am not kidding. This is the best beach I have ever seen, and so I spent the last week working from here. So that's just a little nugget of inspiration. Definitely get your ass to Boracay Island whenever you can. And I'd like to thank John O'Nolan, who's not in the room, for introducing me to Boracay Island. I can't even say it anymore. So this presentation I first gave at WordCamp Melbourne a couple of months ago. It's called 101 Ways to Elevate Yourself and Demand Higher Fees. But what it's actually called is get rid of clients that give you the shit and actually live the life that you want and build the business that you want and do business on your terms. So who here builds websites for clients? Yep, and keep your hand up if you do that using WordPress. Great, that was a gag. And keep your hand up if you'd like to get paid more for doing that. And if you've got clients you'd like to punt, get out the door, get rid of them because they give you the shits, yeah? Cool, all right, so I'm going to move pretty fast through this. I have got 101 slides to get through. Actually, there's 103 because there's 2 bonuses. I wouldn't be a marketer unless there were bonuses. So I'm going to move pretty quick. Strap yourselves in. I hope you've been to the toilet because this is a bit of a joyride. And if you get one nugget out of this, then I've done my job. The first thing is say no to initial client meetings. When a client demands that you have a meeting to talk about their new website, tell them no. You're too busy. You are in demand. You don't have time to come along and listen to their stupid idea about some new website they're going to build and cut you in on future profits. Start doing business on your terms. Qualify them before you meet them. Set up a little survey form on Woofu or use Gravity Forms as long as they don't spit out, bullshit CSS that you have to then go and use selectors to fix like we just heard about. And get your prospective new client to actually tell you about their business before you actually talk to them on the phone or before you go and have a meeting with them. Ask them to do the work and think about their business and tell you what it is they're trying to achieve and who their audience is. Ask quality questions. Start asking quality questions of your clients. Ask the questions that no other web developer is asking. So the whole point of this is to elevate you so that you're an above average web designer. Because if you want to charge above average fees, you've got to be an above average web designer. And the best way to become an above average web designer is for your client to decide for themselves that you are an above average web designer. Because people generally defend decisions that they make on their own down the line with more passion and conviction than if you've convinced them you're an above average web designer, yeah? So start asking quality questions. The question I love asking any new client is, why are we doing this? I'll just give you a moment to look at that graphic. Why do you want to do that? So ask why. Why do you need a new website? Yeah, you got it. Why do you need a new website? Work out, ask them, what does success look like? If we kick ass in the next 12 months, what does that look like for you? Tell me, does that mean more staff, more sales? What does it mean? A new branch, a new store? What does it mean for your life, for your business, more holidays? Tell me what success looks like so we know when we get there that we've arrived. That actually shows them that you care about getting them a return on their investment, and you're not just there to do a job. You're not just there to, churn and burn. Ask them how much budget they have got allocated to bring their vision to life. And if they haven't got a budget allocated, definitely do not go and meet them and listen to them rant and rave about their new website that's going to take over the world, okay? If you want to bring a vision to life, you need to have a budget allocated to it. So start that conversation very early. There's some other stuff that you're probably already doing, but if you're not, you should be. Rebrand the WordPress login so that when they log in, it doesn't say WordPress. Because if they've never seen WordPress, they're going to ring up and go, what's WordPress? Or you're going to have to explain it. So just rebrand the login, put their logo on it. It's a no-brainer. Give them a useful dashboard. So my business dashboard for my clients consists of a little introductory video, an RSS feed of my blog so that I'm top of mind, and their Google Analytics. Yeah? Useful dashboard. Really easy to do with a free plugin that we make called White Label CMS. Value your time. Okay, don't answer the phone every time it rings, and don't answer emails every time someone emails you, giving little tidbits away and answering their questions for free. That's bullshit. Accountants don't do it. Lawyers don't do it. You shouldn't do it. Your mechanic isn't going to lift up the bonnet and you say, oh, while you're there, can you just do this and add it into the project? You're sure, but he's going to itemise that on the bill and you're going to pay extra for it. So start valuing your time, because if you don't value your time, they won't. Show ease of use. Mock up a little wireframe using something like the testimonials plugin from WooThemes and show them how easy it is in the back end. Make a little video screencast and say, this is how easy it's going to be for you to add testimonials to the site moving forward using this little plugin. Don't talk about the technology of the plugin, just show them how easy it is to use. One of the big problems that clients have is they've been burnt by web developers in the past, building a website, handing it over, and then pissing off to the hills in Burma or Thailand or somewhere and going camping and meditating in a cave for 3 months, and they've got no idea how to update their website and they can't get hold of the guy. Yeah? Everyone's had that horror story in the past. So show them how easy it's going to be to manage this site moving forward. Do not meet in cafes. I'm dead serious about this. Do not meet potential new clients in cafes. Because if you meet in a cafe, you are a chilled out, laid back, easygoing web developer. And therefore your rates have to be chilled out, laid back and easygoing. You are a business consultant. A website is a marketing tool. It's a crucial business tool. So meet in an office or a share space like this, or their office if you don't have your own office. Do not meet potential new clients in cafes. Meet your existing clients in cafes, sure, but not potential new clients. Only talk to the decision makers. Don't have a meeting with Robin unless Batman's in the room, yeah? Because then you're just going to have to pitch the whole thing to Batman again, okay? So make sure the decision maker is at every meeting. Have a tight schedule. So when you first meet a client, let them know, hey, I've got to be out of here in 45 minutes because I've got another meeting to go to. And if you don't, that's okay. Bullshit them. It's fine. But be busy. Be in demand. Have a tight schedule. Don't have an initial meeting that lasts for 2.5 hours and you've clearly got no other place to be. Every time I go to ring my osteopath, and I ring them and I get an appointment straight away. My fiancée says, really? How come you can get in straight away? Are they no good? Don't they have any other clients or any other patients? So it's a positioning exercise. Have a tight schedule. Avoid chit-chat. Yeah, sure, do a little bit of rapport building when you first meet them. How's your day been? Blah, blah, blah. But avoid spending a long time talking about the latest sports scandal. Yeah, just get down to business. You're not there just to chit-chat and be their mate. Because guess what? If you're their mate, you have to charge them mate's rates. Okay? So again, it's a positioning thing. Dress well. I'm not saying you need to wear a suit. I mean, we're all funky. Web designers generally wear, jeans, street shoes and black jackets. Take a quick look around the room. There's lots of us here. But don't wear shorts. I'm not kidding. I've seen it. Don't wear shorts and I'm not talking about nice casual dress shorts, like flimsy summer shorts. Don't rock up to a meeting in shorts. Just dress well. Don't talk about plugins or technology. They don't care about the technology. When was the last time you asked your mechanic what machine he uses to align your wheels? Care factor, you want an outcome. Don't talk about the technology, okay? Do your homework. There's this great website, I don't know if you've heard of it, called Google. I think there's a couple of guys here tonight from Google. You can actually do a lot of research on your clients and work out who their competitors are and who the movers and shakers are in their industry and what trends are going on in their industry. So fuel up and understand your prospect really well before you walk into the room. Claim superpowers. I love this one. So I ask my potential new clients, what superpower do you think it is that I bring to this project? Or why am I in the room? Why did you ring me? Why are you talking to me? What superpower do you think I have? Now, it's really hard to try and get a discount from someone if you have admitted that they have superpowers. You know, Superman saved your life. Thanks, Superman. Can I get a discount on that? I don't think so. So claim superpowers. Don't do business cards. Why? Because everyone else does business cards, and busy people don't need business cards. Get theirs, but don't give them yours. I don't do business cards anymore. I don't need them. Don't do business cards. Record your meetings on your smartphone. Just say, hey, I'm going to record this meeting on my smartphone if that's okay with you, and then I'm going to podcast it internationally. No, I'm going to record this meeting on the smartphone so that nothing slips through the cracks. Is that okay with you? Yep, cool. Take it back. You've got a recording, and then email them a summary of that after the meeting the following day. You can even, send it off to a transcriber, have it done. By the time you get back to the office, it's scheduled. They get it the next day. It's all kind of automated. Email them a summary of that meeting so that they know you're all on the same page and that you were listening, yeah? Because people zone out in meetings. We do and they do. They don't hear what we say. We only hear about a quarter of what they say because most of the rest of what they say is boring and crap and we're not interested, right? So record it so that you've got a record of it. And reiterate to them what they said their success factors are. So you said that if this is successful, it will look like this. I just want to make sure we're on the same page so that we're all heading in the same direction. Don't bore them with functional specification documents. Enough said. Read Rework by Jason Fried and David, whose last name I'll never be able to pronounce, from 37 Signals. Who's read this book? Cool. If you haven't, read it. If you have, read it again. It's a game changer. This book is absolutely awesome. Who uses BidSketch to do proposals? Okay, there you go. Use BidSketch to do proposals. This thing allows you to do proposals quickly. It allows you to get electronic signatures. It allows you to template your proposals. They look beautiful, and it takes about 25 minutes to get a proposal out the door as opposed to 4 hours. Tighten up your proposals before you send them. So run your eye over them, get your colleague to have a look at them and make sure that your proposal is tight and punchy and actually spells out the benefits of your solution to their problem, because that's what a proposal is. I ran a webinar this morning for, we've got a WordPress business coaching program that we run for about 60 WordPress consultants around the world, and we ran a webinar this morning. It was all about proposals, and collectively we define the proposal as a proposal's job is to communicate your proposed solution to your client's problem. Who's doing that in their proposals right now? Who's communicating the benefits of your solution to their problem in your proposals right now? Put your hand up if you're doing that. Okay, so that's telling in and of itself. Put checkpoints in your process to get your client to sign off and agree to what's being done so that you can keep the thing moving forward, and more importantly, they can pay you in instalments. Check your grammar. Do not call. So don't call once you've submitted a proposal and follow it up. It's a bit desperate. It's the whole first date thing. He or she who calls after the first date loses. Yep. So don't call. You're too busy to call. Let them call you. What I like to do is send them testimonials or case studies of past clients instead. Hey, thought you might like to see what Joe said about the last time we worked together. Or I'll drop them in an email autoresponder, which I'll talk about later, and give them little tidbits to follow them up automatically without getting on the phone and sounding desperate. Keep true to your process. Do not negotiate on your process. You know what you're doing, they don't. Do not negotiate on your process. Keep time frames. Use something like Gantu.com. I hate Gantt charts, by the way, but these make them look pretty sexy. Email them regular updates on how the project's going and where you're at. Do not discount. Do not discount. Do not discount. Do not discount. Okay, I've just got a bit delirious there. Do never discount. If they want a cheaper price, take features out of the project. Because if you discount, you're admitting that you were ripping them off in the first place. Okay? Keep them informed. So send them emails about, trends and what's going on with responsive design to let them know that you know what you're talking about. Have an opinion. Send them an article and say, hey, I saw this, I thought you might be interested in it. I think it's bullshit and here's why. Because X, Y, Z. Have an opinion. People like to work with people who know where they're going and have a thought and have opinions about the market space. We all want leaders, okay? Just very few of us are prepared to put our flag in the sand and say, hey, I know where I'm going, let's go this way. Doesn't take much to actually do that. Show credibility. Send them articles from Smashing Magazine or whatever other thought-leading blog is around, and say, hey, I subscribe to this, I read this regularly, so I'm across what's going on. Show TED Talks. Get the RSS feed from TED Talks and send them a TED Talk that relates to business building or hiring staff or whatever problem they're having in their business right now. No one else is doing this kind of stuff, right? Who's doing this? Who's emailing prospects an inspirational video from TED? Okay, we got one. Thank you. Case studies. Who uses case studies proactively in their business as a marketing tool? Okay, a couple. Why? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, don't have time now, do it afterwards. I think because we don't know how to write good case studies, yeah? So read this book, Making Your Case by Jonathan Krantz, get it from krantzcom.com, and tell your potential new client that the window of opportunity to work with you is closing. We have a production schedule and we have a window that you need to push the button by next Friday, otherwise the next opportunity is end of August. The window is closing. Even if it's bullshit, tell them the window is closing. It's a positioning thing. Make product. Is Blage Robar in the room? No, I embarrassed him at WordCamp. Make product. So Blage from 11 Media, Aaron's business partner, makes a product called thelayoutlab.com. It's all these amazingly beautiful UI elements designed that he sells as Photoshop bundles. It's really hard to argue with a WordPress designer who builds products that thousands of other designers around the world use. Does that make sense? So build product, build plugins if you're a developer, if you're a designer, make UI products. Content first. Demand that your client gets their content first before you start planning their website, designing it or developing it. Use gathercontent.com to get them to buy into the process. Design in the browser. Use easel.io to actually design websites in the browser so that you can show them what their website's going to look like in the browser. Stop designing websites in Photoshop, please. Photoshop is a drawing of a website. It's not a bloody website. Use Easel or some other in-browser tool to start building websites in browsers, because guess what? Websites live in browsers and no one else is doing it because it's weird. So start doing it. Use solidifyapp.com to make clickable prototypes that your client can interact with and actually go, okay, well, this is not how it's going to look, obviously, but this is how it might work. Because if you try and explain in a functional specification document what a client login section looks like in an e-commerce website, your version of events and my version of events are very strangely worlds apart, and never the two shall meet, and I can never articulate that in words. I have to show you how it works in a browser. Use the Canvas theme by WooThemes. It's $70 as a proof of concept. So I use this along with WooCommerce to build complete e-commerce prototypes that are black and white squares and no images, and I show them, hey, this is how it might work. How's that feel? Good? Yep. Should we start designing it? Awesome. Pay me some money and we're up and about, yeah? Show deadlines. This is my deadline, here's your deadline. So you need to have content to us by this point. We're going to have this done by then, and keep them on track. Collaborate. Invite them into Basecamp to collaborate on the process. Refuse to launch anything on a Friday. I learnt that one the hard way, twice. Make sure you've got a champion client side who is championing the project. Use premium plugins, because if you're making more money, you can afford them, and they come with excellent support. Document your processes and share it amongst your team and your colleagues so that if you get hit by a bus, someone in a co-working space like this can pick up the project and move it along. Use something like Box or Google Sites or Google Docs to document your processes. Quick plug for you there, guys. I'm sure you need it, but anyway. Use premium hosting, wpengine.com. Does anyone use wpengine.com? Okay, what are the rest of you doing? wpengine.com is awesome. Absolutely, absolutely awesome. I can't stress it enough. Use premium hosting. Don't use VPS shared hosting rubbish to host mission critical websites. Use premium hosting. Check the hosting environment, or use WP Engine, you won't need to. But if you're using a shared hosting environment, make sure you check the environment that it's WordPress compatible. Yeah, maybe send your client a screenshot that it's all good. Best practices. So read websites like this, 15 essential checklists before launching a website, and email these to your client and say, hey, just thought I'd let you know, these are the process we follow in-house to make sure all the boxes get ticked. Avoid scope creep. Anyone know what scope creep is? Yeah, put your hand up if you know scope creep. Put your hand up if you have nightmares about this little prick. Yeah? So scope creep is when you're almost finished your project and the client goes, but we wanted to do this, and this, and we don't want to pay extra for it. It's like the doctor doing open heart surgery and you say, can you just check my kidneys while you're in there? Avoid scope creep. Stick to the proposal. Preview early. I show my clients websites with placeholder images and lorem ipsum. Show, it really gets them motivated to get their content together, by the way. Preview early, preview as you're building it. It's not finished yet, but hey, here's what we're up to. Is Elliot Condon in the room? No? Oh man, I just cannot track that guy down. I'm going to kiss that man's head when I finally meet him. Use advanced custom fields. Is anyone not using advanced custom fields? So everyone in the room's using advanced custom fields?
Different modules.
Sweet. Yep, changed my life. Use browserstack.com to make sure that your website's cross-browser compatible, and then email the report to your client to show them that you've done it. Stick to the proposal. Don't waver from the proposal. There's a great talk on Vimeo.com by a guy named Mike Monteiro. It's called, pardon the French, Fuck You, Pay Me. I suggest you all watch it. He walks you through a very simple methodology of how to avoid scope creep and how to stick to the proposal. He basically says to his clients, yep, we can do all that, but right now, fuck you, pay me for what I've done. And then we can do it. Celebrate a win. So when you launch a website, send your clients champagnes and chocolate. I actually do this. Does anyone do this? Does anyone send champagne and chocolate to a client when they launch a website?
No, I give them to myself instead.
You give them to yourself. Awesome. Well, do it. Just make sure they're good. Send a congratulations email on, launching the site. Say thank you when they pay you. Little things go a long way. Use WP SEO by Yoast. It is a no-brainer. It is so powerful, this plugin, and so easy to use. Verify the website with Google's Webmaster Tools, and then email your client and show them you've done it. Give your client their details of their host so that when their website goes down or their email shit themselves, they don't ring you and email you and hassle you. Unless, of course, you're hosting websites, in which case I'm very sorry that your life is so awful. We don't host websites. I give my clients the details of their hosts so they can bother them. Don't be too eager for money. To get paid, I mean. Be eager for money, but don't be too eager to get paid. So when the site, goes live or they approve something, don't email them within 10 minutes and say, hey, you made me money now. Maybe give it, 24 hours or 48 hours. Install analytics on their website and tell the client you've done it and show them how to use it. Use Managed WP. Is anyone doing this? Anyone know Managed WP? Yep, so it allows you to manage multiple WordPress websites from one dashboard. It's awesome. It allows you to update core and update plugins really quickly, which you can then bundle up as a product and sell to your clients as a maintenance plan. Tweak caching for speed, or use wpengine.com. You don't have to worry about it. Secure WordPress, or use wpengine.com. You don't have to worry about it. Check the index and make sure that your client's website is indexed and isn't selling Viagra or porn. I'm not kidding. As I was walking in here tonight, I got off the phone to a WordPress colleague who rang me and said, hey, you know that farmer hack that was going around Yeah. Well, I've just done site : yep. And yep, I know. So check the index and make sure that your client's site is in the index and is accurate. Schedule backups to Dropbox and tell your client you're doing it and share the Dropbox folder with them so they know where their backups are all the time. By the way, you don't have to do all of these things, all right? Just maybe pick a couple or three that you're happy with. That's a start in the right direction, yeah? I'll give you access to the slides and an ebook later on too so you can get all this stuff. Provide video tutorials. Yes, that's my company, videousermanuals.com. These are premium video tutorials to show your client how to use WordPress. Dig the site. Don't know why, maybe these guys can explain it, but Google for some reason just loves sites that get dug in Dig. So every time we launch a site, we go to Dig, we submit the site to Dig, and then we send the client an email or a screenshot saying, hey, we just dug your site. They have no idea what we're talking about, but they think it's pretty cool. And for some reason, Google liked that. So embed a welcome video in their dashboard to say, hey, I made this little generic video. Doesn't mention a client's name, but to say, hey, welcome to your new website. Really, happy that you're here and you found it and you logged in and the sky didn't fall in and no smoke came out of the machine and it's all good. Just want to let you know, this is your dashboard. First thing you want to do is go over here, click on the manual thing, watch all the videos. That's going to show you how to use the website. If you get into Strife, you're probably going to need to call your host, not me. These are their details. I'm going to Braque in the Philippines. Adios. Not really, but something along those lines. Yeah, just welcome them to the website. Teach them how to use the Google link tagger so that when they're campaigning around in social media and doing whatever craziness they're doing, they know how to tag their links so that it's getting tracked in Google Analytics, yeah? Set follow-up reminders in your calendar to follow them up. 60 days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days out from the project. Say, hey, how's it all going? Are you on track to kick those goals that we defined when we first started working together? Set that up in your Google Calendar as a reminder so that it doesn't slip through the cracks. It takes 2 minutes to pick up the phone and call them or email them. Get feedback. Ask them, why did you work with us? Are we any good? How could we improve ourselves? Read the referral engine. If there's one thing you get out of this presentation, that's it. Read the referral engine by John Jansch. Looks good on an iPad, doesn't it? Put the RSS feed of your blog in the client's dashboard. So every time they log in, your information's there and you're top of mind. You can do that with a white label CMS plugin. Add clients to your email list and email them regularly with, tidbits, useful stuff, interesting stuff, generally about their business and about online marketing in general. Yeah? Email them the SEO Moz Beginner's Guide. This is unbelievable, this thing. If you haven't read it, you should, and email it to your clients. It's a really comprehensive guide on basically the beginner's guide to SEO, and it's broken down in a really beautiful way. It looks spectacular, and it's really easy to understand, and the fundamentals are there, so it never goes out of date. Suggest split testing, and then use something like convert.com or Optimizely or Visual Website Optimizer, and give yourself some extra work by running A/B split tests for your clients. No one else is doing that, by the way. Really easy to do, gives you more consulting work, and elevates you straight away, because no other web developers are doing that, because it's too hard and it's too weird, and they don't really know what they're doing. Send them the beginner's guide to social from mashable.com. Give premium Grovo. Does anyone know grovo.com? Yeah? Is anyone a premium member at grovo.com? Grovo.com has hundreds of video tutorials to show you how to use all sorts of websites, from Basecamp to Dropbox to Google Apps to Facebook to Twitter to LinkedIn, how to run a Facebook ad campaign, how to set up Facebook events, all sorts of crazy stuff. I think a premium membership's like $90 a year or something. I buy these subscriptions for my clients and send it to them and say, hey, you want to know how to do X, Y, Z? Log in here. I've bought you a premium subscription. You can check out all these videos for the next year and fuel up on how to use the internet and help grow your business. They love you for that. This is one of my favorites. I interviewed Justin Cutroni, who's analytics advocate at Google recently, and I met him a couple of weeks ago when he was in Melbourne, and he introduced me to the Google Analytics multi-channel report thing, which I didn't understand what he was talking about when he first introduced me to it, but I totally get it now. This thing basically helps you understand the channels that your traffic's coming to your site, the various channels that are driving traffic to your site, and what I really love is this thing called assisted conversions, which is not the traffic source that's kicking goals on your website, but the traffic source that's assisting goals on your website. So for example, someone might click a link on an email, go to your site, then come back to your site as a direct visit a week later and kick a goal, but the assist, so the goal is direct, but the assist was from the email. So this is like knowing, okay, who's the best goal shooter on the team, but who are the players that actually get the ball to that guy? Because we need to put some effort into them as well to make sure they can continually get the ball to that guy so that he can kick the goals. So make a little get your head around it first, then make a little screencast video on how to use it and send them an MP4 they can watch on their iPhone. No one else is doing that. It takes 5 minutes to fuel, doesn't have to be this particular topic, but 5 minutes to fuel up on something that you know about, make a little video on ScreenFlow or Camtasia or whatever you use, email it to your client or send them a link in Dropbox. Use visual.ly to send beautiful Google Analytics reports to your client every week. Sorry, your analytics reports are good, but you cannot compete with this. These things are amazing. If you haven't seen it, check them out. Branded SEO reports. So I use this thing, cost me $200 a year, and I put all my clients in there, and every week they get a PDF, a beautiful PDF with my logo on it, and says, hey, here are your keywords, here's how you're tracking in Google, Yahoo, and Bing, here's your movement over the last week with a little personalised email. So every Monday morning, they get contacted by me, and I'm totally hands-off for the year. It takes me 5 minutes to set it up, and it's done for the year. Send them an Evernote. Just, while you're thinking about them or something occurs to you, write them a little note in Evernote and email it to them to show that you're thinking about them and that you care about their success. And by the way, you should actually care about their success. Make their website a portfolio piece, put it on your portfolio, and then email them and show them how proud you are of the work that you've done. Post them a book. Yep, those good old-fashioned physical things that you can open and weigh your bag down. Actually post them a physical book that you think they might find interesting and relevant for their business. Use Pingdom and send them reports every month to show how their website has been performing and how their uptime is, and compare it against their competitors. Introduce them to HubSpot.com. HubSpot.com is a great source for online marketing, ebooks and resources. So introduce them to HubSpot and say, hey, come and check these guys out. They've got great ebooks on how to use Twitter for business or how to set up your LinkedIn profile. Continue asking quality questions throughout the whole client relationship. I think it was Anthony Robbins, and I'm not going to get all self-help on you, don't worry. I'm not going to ask you to stand up and hug each other. I'll go on there and stand up and hug each other. No. Anthony Robbins, I think, was the one that said the the quality of our relationships are defined by the quality of our questions. And I can't stress this enough, that the better quality questions you ask your client about their business, the better quality relationship you'll build, because most average web developers don't ask those questions. Average web developers just start thinking about technology and how to piece this together. Invite them to an event. Go to eventbrite.com and actually find a physical event that's local, that's relevant to their business. It might be a marketing, networking thing, or human resources, staff, hiring, cash flow, whatever. Invite them to an event and go with them. Nominate them for a small business award if they are worthy. And if they're not worthy, ask yourself why they're your client. Send them useful apps from the App Store. Find an app that you think might be useful for them and email them a link. Say no to client meetings, even if they're an existing client of yours and they ring you up and say, oh, you've got to come down, we've got to meet urgently, we've got this new thing happening in the business, there's some growth expected and blah, 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 and we're going to need all this new stuff on the website. You say, yep, no worries, can't do that right now, leave it with me, I'll get back to you with some times. So what I do is I've got this little thing called Time Trade, which shows my schedule online, and I email my clients, and I've got blocked out certain times during the week where I'm available to meet with clients. And by the way, I don't physically meet with clients anymore, I do it all on Skype, because I travel a fair bit, I can't physically get to meet them. But I say, hey, here's my schedule, here are your options, you pick when you want to meet. They click on a button, I get an email saying, you're meeting Joe Blow on Skype at 11 o'clock Monday morning, I say, cool, no worries. But they don't ring me up and say, can you come meet me? No, that doesn't happen anymore, because I'm too busy and I'm in demand. Now, there was a time when I wasn't too busy and I wasn't too in demand, but I made a choice to position myself then and there. No one's going to tap you on the shoulder and say, now is the time that you are too busy and too in demand to have client meetings. You just make that decision yourself. Okay, and once you make that decision, you position yourself, clients will respect that process. Clients love it if you are busy. John O'Nolan, who I was talking about before, he's professionally homeless. He travels the world. He doesn't live anywhere for any longer than 3 or 4 weeks. And his clients include Disney and Microsoft, amongst others. And he's a web designer. He doesn't do physical client meetings. No one cares. They don't care about that if you're good enough and if the output and the result is what they're after. And if you position yourself well. So run their website through a broken link checker 6 months after you've launched and email them a report. I think it's mint.com has that service. Use the Google page speed tool and check their page speed and email them a report. Say, hey, your page speed is XYZ. What can we do to speed it up? Or this is how it's affecting your search results. Remind them of their goals. 12 months after you've launched the site, remind them of the goals that they were trying to achieve and ask them how close they are. Yeah, how are we going for time? Good? 5? All right. So, the 101st way to elevate yourself and demand higher fees is to refer your clients' clients and work. Yeah? So ask them, what kind of business do you want? Who's your perfect client? Who do you want more of? And then think about your network and ask how you can connect them with more of their perfect clients. Because the best way for you to get referrals is to start giving them to your clients who you respect and whose work you know is worthy of it. But wait, there's more. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I think the absolute easiest way to get paid better fees and actually get paid what you're worth is to lose your hourly rate. So let's be honest, who here has got an hourly rate? Okay, so my absolute fundamental belief is that you do not need an hourly rate. I believe an hourly rate is an arbitrary figure that two people use, or that two parties use, when they cannot agree on the value being transferred in that transaction. Your job is to get rid of your hourly rate and start illuminating the value that you add to the client and to the project. Because once you start illuminating value, price doesn't become an issue. If you qualify your leads before you waste time with them, because we've all got tire kickers, we've all got clients that pop their head up and they've got $500 to build Facebook for medical practitioners. I've actually had that one, yeah. We've all got tire kickers, so qualify them before you waste time, and then don't have an hourly rate. Sell value. What's the value to the business if I can free up your admin staff from answering the same questions over and over again, and I can drive 10% new customers into the front door of your business by building this website that's going to solve these problems? What is that worth to the business? Have that conversation and then say, okay, is that worth investing $7,500 in to make that happen? Or is that worth investing $15,000 in or $5,000 in or whatever the client's indicated their budget is? Is that worth investing that to get that result? Stop talking about an hourly rate. An hourly rate is lazy and an hourly rate is irrelevant. No one cares about an hourly rate unless you haven't worked out how to talk about value. And here's a bonus free ebook of all the slides I just went through at wpvum.com/WCMel13, because this presentation was originally done at WordCamp Melbourne 2013. I'm happy to answer questions before I hit the floor, so fire away. Yes?
Great talk, man.
Thank you.
Just on the alley rate thing, what about sort of maintenance, updates, small tasks
Yep.
that come up with a large project?
Great question. That's usually the first question that gets asked. So for those that didn't hear it, if you haven't got an hourly rate, how do you charge for updates and maintenance and support? Productize it, sell monthly packages, and then use stuff like Manage WP to automate it and systemize it and do it really quickly.
Just on that Manage WP,
Yep.
in my experience, updating plugins isn't as straightforward as just update, everything's fine. It's, you have conflicts, you have things like that. How do you address that?
Use wpengine.com.
Yep.
They'll update it for you.
But outside the core sort of security updates things, just premium plugins, things
Yep.
like that. Sometimes they release things that have bugs and
Yep.
conflicts.
Yep, that's absolutely, it happens. So I've got a staging server where I run the latest version of all the plugins and a whole bunch of plugins in the latest version of WordPress core, and I make sure that everything's ticking along there. And I don't actually do a lot of maintenance these days, but when I productise maintenance, so I might sell a maintenance package for $650 a year, or whatever the budget is, whatever the client needs are, and then I'll use these services to actually automate the process or delegate the process to someone else in the organisation so that it can get done in an efficient way. But what you want to avoid is saying, oh, well, yeah, we can update your site, and we can do this and do this and do that, and it's only going to take 2 hours, and our hourly rate's, I don't know, $120, so we'll charge you $240, because by the time you raise an invoice, by the time you chase them because they're paying late, by the time you do all of that, there's no profit. So if you can say, well, the maintenance package is, $69 a month, but if you pay a year in advance, you get 2 months free, so it's $690 for the year you pay up front. You've got the money, and then it's up to you to get your systems right to make sure you can deliver that and still make a profit.
Cool.
Yeah? Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Cool. Yes?
How do you address scope creep and not having an hourly rate? Because I find it really hard. Sometimes the things they ask for, I'm assuming scope creep, I wouldn't even think you're adding much value, but they're hell-bent that the menu has to be this way or something.
Yeah.
And so I just say, fine, have it your way, but it's going to be 2 extra hours.
Yep.
So you're saying not to say that.
Well, that's right. So that's exactly right. Stop saying it's going to be 2 extra hours.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to do is it's a balance between getting a really tight brief and a really tight proposal. And what I like to do now is get clients to engage me at a lower fee to actually start building prototypes using the Woo Themes Canvas theme. So we start building prototypes, and all that scope creep stuff gets sorted out before you actually pick up your crayons and start designing it. Because they start to see it and they go, all right, well, now it's going to need this, and it's going to need that, and it's going to need a search function, and it's going to need the thing in the shopping cart that they hadn't thought was possible. So you get all that stuff done in the prototypes before you actually start designing, and then you can quote and say, okay, well, here's the prototype. For us to build this website, design it and develop it is going to be X. Yeah? If that's too much, or you don't want to work with us anymore, you can take this prototype and shop it around and get a great quote somewhere else. You've still been paid for the work, and there's very, very little chance of running into scope creep later on because all that stuff's been worked out in the interactive prototype. So this is why it's really hard to get a really tight, comprehensive brief about a website if you're actually communicating on email and you're not looking at the same thing. Does that make sense? But if you're in that position and you've done a proposal and you're building a site and you're almost finished and they say, well, it needs to do this, 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 and this, watch the Mike Monteiro talk, because basically what he says is, here's the project we agreed to, this is the project we need to build. If we start doing other stuff now, it's going to potentially sacrifice the integrity of what we've already built, because we don't know how it's going to interact and we don't know what's going to happen and the kind of inner workings of that. So what we need to do is finish this project that we agreed to, get that locked off, signed and done and paid for, then we're happy to add more features in a next iteration, and we'll quote separately on that, and then you can either say yes or no for those future features. But if anyone else has got any ideas, I don't know everything about this, Yeah.
So on that prototyping, what sort of percentage of the project would you allocate budget-wise, or how much of the project is that prototype?
Look, it's a good question. I'll be completely transparent with you. I've got a flat fee of $9.97 for an interactive prototype. Okay. So if a client comes to me and says, well, we're not really sure what we want to do, but we think we'll do this, I try and get them, first of all, I try and get them online for a consulting session at $4.97. for an initial consulting session, at which point I'll give them all the information I have and give them exactly what they need, what I think they need to go and build it. They can write all that down, I record it for them, I give it to them. They can actually take that session and go and get a quote from another developer. What I try and do is get them to build an interactive prototype and charge them $9.97 for that. And again, at that point, if they think I'm a dickhead, they can go and get it quoted by someone else and get it built somewhere else. And at that point, I've been paid, that's cool. If they want to go ahead, I can say, all right, well, this prototype we built, to actually bring this thing to life and make it rock, is going to cost X. And at that point, they trust you, you've delivered. See, once someone's paid, it's like, you know, we're all high-functioning grown-up adults here, aren't we? Yeah, cool. It's like having sex with someone for the first time. When you have sex with someone for the first time, the relationship changes forever. That relationship will never be the same because you've had sex, right? Paying an invoice to a new supplier, paying the first invoice to a new supplier is pretty much like that. Once they've paid you some small amount of money, the relationship changes forever. There's more trust. The stakes are a little bit higher, but there's more trust. So it's a stronger relationship. So if you can get a small amount of money of them to deliver some small deliverable, which in this case is an interactive prototype, then they're more likely to spend more money with you moving forward because they've already engaged you, because you've got them over that initial trust barrier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's beer. You promised beer, yeah?
You're using that, what, $100 bills on the slide to pay.
Yes.
You were speaking earlier on about the surveying process, and I was just wondering how in-depth do you go with that process, and do you find that the clients engage with the process, or do they kind of resent having to answer all these questions? Do you think it turns them off?
It's a great question. So the survey process, I call it the website worksheet, and it's really simple. If you go to troydean.com.au/websites, you can see it there. It's a gravity form, but it basically says, you know, tell me about your business. Tell me about your revenue over the last 12 months and your revenue goals for the next 12 months. What are your business needs? Who's the target audience? What are their needs? How much budget have you got? Who are the decision makers? What's your time frame? And there's a couple of other questions. And frankly, if someone can't fill in that form, I don't want them as a client because they haven't done the thinking. They haven't, you know, any business person who has a viable, up and running business who needs a website can answer those questions in less than 10 minutes. If they can't, I'm not interested. Go away. I've actually had clients come back 3 months later saying, I've done the research now, I've done the work, we're ready to answer these questions, we're ready to go. So for me, it's a great way of going, you're probably a tire kicker. Go and fill that form in. If you can't fill it in, not interested. If you are, then my ears are pricked up because you've actually done the work and you know what you're talking about. And more importantly, I've seen what kind of budget you've indicated to bring your vision to life. And if it's not realistic, I'll just send you a templated email saying, look, I'm really sorry, I've got a full dance card right now, I can't help you, but here's someone who might be able to. If your budget is realistic, I'd say, cool. What I'd love to do at this point is get on the phone and have a quick chat or jump on Skype and have a quick chat. If they've indicated a good budget, I don't charge them for that first session. I'll just get them on Skype for 10 minutes, drill in, try and get as much information as I can, and then I'll send them a proposal. But if they've got a bit of budget but they're not really sure what they want, that's when I start trying to get them to build interactive prototypes. So I don't find it very hard to get them engaged in that process at all, because if they're not going to engage in that process, then they're not ready. And you're going to end up in a world of pain if you try and bring that client's website to life because they don't know what they want. And so the whole thing, it's really managing expectations is probably, sorry, I'm delirious now and I'm just on. So pull the pin at any time. But the biggest problem we've got a database of about 8,000 WordPress consultants from all over the world from our products, yeah? And I have conversations with them all the time. That's my job. My job is to turn up to events like this and email and get on Skype and have conversations with our customers all the time. And the biggest problem that I find they have is kind of what you were saying. And it all comes down to managing expectations. Why do I feel like I'm getting blackmailed or bribed or into doing this extra work for no extra money because I want to be nice and keep the client happy? So the biggest problem is managing expectations. Well, there's a really simple way, in my mind, to manage a client's expectations. That is, you've got to understand comprehensively what it is they expect before you start doing business with them. So if you're having a problem managing your client's expectations, I hate to be the one to tell you, but it's not your client's problem. It's your problem because you haven't done the work to fully understand what it is they expect. Because if you did, you would be meeting and exceeding their expectations. And if you can elevate to that level, you can start charging more than the average web designer because you will be an above average web designer. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I would just like to thank all our speakers, Amy, Stuart, Peter, and Troy, for giving up their time to come along tonight and in the previous weeks to actually prepare as well. So I hope everyone learned something, and thanks very much, guys. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors, Envato and Inspire 9, that made tonight and our other meetups possible. Also, there is some information there about some upcoming events. The next WordChicks meetup, 1st of August, and the next WordPress meetup is a beginners/user meetup, and that's on the 14th of August. Press Jam, like Dee and Glenn mentioned earlier, is end of August, so there's details there if you're interested in being a part of that. And also, the month after that, September 11th, is the next WordPress developer meetup. So thanks very much, everyone, for coming. I hope you learnt something, and we hope to see you back again.